What happens when a self-made CEO goes undercover at one of his own restaurants and finds a dishwasher crying in a storage room? Ryan Ellers had built his restaurant chain from the ground up well, almost. He bought it 10 years ago from a retiring couple who had run a few family-style diners across the state. Ryan kept the charm, expanded to 14 locations, and added structure. But lately, something was off. Customer complaints were piling up at one specific restaurant, the one in Oakdale. Food came late, service was cold. Online reviews were brutal. Ryan didn't rely on filtered reports. He wanted to see it for himself. So with a shaved beard, thick-rimmed glasses, and a fake tattoo sleeve, Ryan became Rick, a new trainee dishwasher. He had never met the Oakdale staff in person, and as the CEO rarely visited individual stores, no one had ever seen him up close. HR helped set up the fake hire through a staffing agency they sometimes used to fill gaps. There had been high turnover at the Oakdale location for months. The kitchen was short-staffed, and the manager kept requesting more bodies but never gave real reasons. Ryan had questions. He was about to get answers. He clocked in on a rainy Monday morning and stepped into the back kitchen. The place smelled like burnt oil and stress. Pans clanged, orders were shouted, and no one said hello. "Hey, you the new guy?" a server asked, barely looking at him. "Yeah, Rick," Ryan said. "Dish station, back corner, ask for Theo." Ryan found Theo mid-30s, quiet, moving fast, sleeves rolled up, sweat dripping down his face. He looked up, gave a nod, and kept scrubbing. "Grab some gloves. We got backed up last night," Theo muttered. Ryan jumped in. The dishes were piled high. He worked side by side with Theo for hours, and not once did anyone ask if they needed help. The line cooks barked orders. The manager, a tightly wound man named Darren, hovered around the front, barking at servers and vanishing into the office. By noon, Ryan noticed something strange. Theo hadn't taken a single break. Not even water. "You all right, man?" Ryan asked during a brief lull. Theo nodded, but his eyes were red. "Just tired." When the lunch rush hit, it got worse. Dishes came faster than they could clean them. A server tripped and dropped a tray, glass shattered. Darren stormed into the kitchen. "Are you kidding me?" Darren shouted. "This is why I ask for real staff, not clowns from agencies." She slipped. The server tried to explain. "Then maybe she should walk like a grown adult. You think customers care about your clumsiness?" Ryan felt his chest tighten. He watched Theo flinch at the yelling. Something wasn't right. After the shift, Theo quietly disappeared. Ryan was wiping down trays when he noticed the back storage room door was slightly open. He stepped closer and heard soft sobbing. He pushed the door open slowly. Theo sat on a crate, facing the wall, shoulders shaking. "Theo," Ryan said gently. Theo wiped his face fast. "Sorry, just needed a minute." Ryan stepped inside and shut the door behind him. "Talk to me." Theo opened his mouth but froze when a voice came from just outside the door. It was Darren. "I don't care if he's crying," Darren snapped to someone on the phone. "Let him quit if he's so damn sensitive. He's just a dishwasher. They're all replaceable. You think I'm gonna babysit a grown man who can't handle soap and plates?" Ryan stood frozen. Theo's eyes widened. The words hit like a punch. Ryan clenched his jaw. Darren walked off, still talking. "He's been here 2 years and still acts like a scared kid. I'm done pretending he's useful." Theo didn't say anything. He just stared at the floor. Ryan sat next to him. Everything inside him screamed to rip off the disguise, but he wasn't done yet. He needed to see more. "I'm really sorry, man," Ryan said quietly. "That's not okay." Theo shook his head. "It's whatever. I need the job." Ryan didn't believe that for a second. It wasn't whatever. It was a man being crushed by the very place that should have had his back. He stood. "I've got your back." Theo looked up, confused. Ryan forced a smile. "You'll see." The next day, Ryan showed up early. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was looking for proof how Darren ran the place, how people were treated, what went wrong, and he was going to fix it. But first, he had to finish his shift. Tuesday morning, Ryan stood silently by the back entrance, watching the kitchen lights flicker to life as the first staff trickled in. The air inside was heavy, thick with grease and fatigue. No greetings were exchanged. Everyone moved with their heads down like they were bracing for something. Darren wasn't in yet, but the tension already was. Ryan tied his apron and stepped into the dish pit. Theo arrived 5 minutes later, his hoodie damp from the mist outside, eyes distant. He gave a quick nod and started loading the racks. "Sleep okay?" Ryan asked, keeping his voice low. Theo didn't look up. "Didn't really." Ryan didn't push. He just turned on the sprayer and got to work. By noon, Ryan had seen enough to confirm what he suspected. Burnout wasn't the problem, it was the symptom. The real issue was fear. No one spoke unless necessary. Mistakes weren't corrected, they were punished. And above all, Darren ruled by keeping people small. Servers whispered about clocking out before finishing side work so their hours wouldn't go over. Line cooks said nothing when food was sent back, even if it wasn't their fault. No one asked for help. They just tried not to get noticed. During prep, Ryan caught a quiet moment with one of the fry cooks, a woman named Lena who moved with robotic precision. "You been here long?" he asked. She nodded. "Couple years. You like it?" Lena didn't answer right away. She kept slicing onions slowly. "I have 2 kids," she finally said. "I don't have the luxury of liking or not liking it." That sentence sat with Ryan longer than he expected. Mid-shift, Darren arrived. He didn't greet anyone. He walked straight to the expo line, picked up a ticket, frowned, and tossed it onto the floor. "This is why we're getting slammed on Yelp," he said. "Who plated this?" No one answered. "You want me to guess?" he asked louder. A line cook raised his hand hesitantly. "Do it again, and this time try using both your eyes." Ryan kept his head down, but his fists were clenched under the sink. Later, while clearing a stack of pans, he overheard Darren on the phone. "Tell corporate we're short again," he said, "but don't authorize overtime. I'm not blowing the budget because people here move like sloths." Ryan made a mental note. Staff was being forced to cover more with less, and then blamed when standards slipped. That evening, Ryan lingered by the dry storage closet. Theo was wiping down the prep table alone. "You always close solo?" Ryan asked. Theo looked up. "Usually. Sometimes Lena helps if she's not covering for the line." "Where's Darren?" "He left after dinner rush. Said we could handle cleanup." Ryan paused. "You don't get paid for staying late, do you?" Theo didn't even pretend to lie. "Nah, clock out before we start wiping things down." Ryan stared at him. "That's illegal." Theo gave a tired shrug. "I know." Wednesday, Ryan arrived early again. He'd arranged for a friend of his posing as a health inspector to do a surprise walkthrough. It wasn't real enforcement, but it would reveal how Darren handled accountability. The inspector showed up mid-morning. Everyone froze. Darren's face went pale when she walked in, clipboard in hand. "We weren't informed," he said quickly. "Unannounced visit," she replied. "That's the point." Ryan watched from the dish area as Darren scrambled to hide things. He pushed boxes into the walk-in, barked at a cook to wipe down the fryer, and tried to steer the inspector away from the backroom. But she was thorough. She found expired meat in the fridge and an uncleaned grease trap behind the oven. Ryan noticed Darren trying to talk over her notes, dismissing the issues as minor oversights. When she left, he gathered the staff in the kitchen. "Don't overreact," he said, waving his hand. "She was just looking for something to write up. Happens all the time." No one responded. That afternoon, Ryan caught up with Lena near the back door. She was on break, sipping water. "You ever bring this stuff up to anyone?" he asked. She looked around. "You mean corporate?" Ryan nodded. "They don't listen. We had a girl complain last year, said Darren was yelling at her in the walk-in. HR asked if there were witnesses. There weren't. She quit next week." Ryan's stomach turned. He went back inside and found Theo wiping down the dish station. "You trust me?" Ryan asked. Theo looked up cautiously. "I don't know, maybe." "Good enough," Ryan said. "I need to see the office." Theo hesitated. "Darren locks it." "Where does he keep the keys?" Theo glanced toward the coat rack by the staff room. "Sometimes in his jacket." Ryan waited until Darren stepped out to take a call. He moved quickly, slipped the keyring from the coat pocket, and unlocked the office. Inside, the desk was cluttered with receipts, schedules, and a half-finished bottle of whiskey. Ryan scanned quickly. In a drawer, he found pre-printed schedules with names crossed out in pen. Next to them were time cards with altered timestamps. He took photos, then he found a notebook. Inside were notes about staff, but not performance-related, personal digs. Lena slow, probably on something. Don't promote. Dish kid keeps crying, replace soon. New girl heavy, not good for front of house. Ryan stopped reading. The door creaked behind him. He turned. Darren stood there, staring. What the hell are you doing? Ryan closed the drawer. Looking at what kind of man you are. I should call the agency, Darren said. You're done. Ryan stepped forward. You're right, I am. He pulled off the fake glasses, peeled back the tattoo sleeve, and tossed the name tag on the desk. Darren's face drained. I'm Ryan Ellers, he said. I own this company, and as of now, you're finished. Darren didn't move. You can't just, I can, and I will, you're done. Ryan walked past him out in the kitchen. The noise had stopped. People stared. Ryan stepped into the middle of the line. I'm Ryan Ellers, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I've been working here undercover for the last 3 days. I saw what you've been dealing with. I saw how hard you work, and I saw how leadership failed you. No one spoke. Lena looked stunned. Theo stood frozen, still holding a sponge. Darren's no longer with this restaurant, Ryan continued. Effective immediately. Someone let out a breath. Another dropped their towel. I'm not going to pretend this fixes everything. I should have caught it sooner. That's on me, but it changes now. He turned to Theo. Can you stay a few minutes? I need your help rebuilding this place. Theo nodded slowly. Yeah, I can. Ryan looked around. Break room now, everyone. Paid time. We talk, we eat, and you tell me what you need. For the first time in 3 days, eyes lifted from the floor. The break room wasn't built for honesty, but that morning, it carried more of it than it ever had. The usual hum of the vending machine was drowned out by voices cautious at first, then clearer as people realized they were being heard for the first time. Ryan sat at the end of the plastic table, sleeves rolled, listening without interrupting. No clipboard, no formality. Just people finally saying things out loud. Lena leaned forward, arms crossed over her chest, speaking evenly. We don't need a ping-pong table or whatever corporate thinks counts as culture. We need enough people to run this place without falling apart halfway through the shift. A prep cook named Marcus nodded. I haven't taken a lunch break in. I don't know. Weeks maybe. We used to have 3 people on prep, now it's just me. Ryan looked at the shift roster taped to the wall. Last week you did 6 straight doubles. Yeah, Marcus said. I don't have a choice. If I say no, I get cut from the next schedule. Another server, Nicole, chimed in. And when a table complains, even when it's not our fault, we get written up. That's the part that broke me. It's not just the physical stuff. It's feeling like we're set up to fail. Ryan made eye contact with each of them. So why did you stay? They didn't answer right away. Then Nicole said, because we wanted it to get better, and we didn't want to leave the few people here who still gave a damn. Theo hadn't spoken yet. He sat near the back, hands clasped in front of him. When everyone else had said their piece, he finally raised his head. I didn't think anyone would ever walk in and fix it, he said. But I hoped someone might at least notice. His voice wasn't angry, it was quiet. Worn. Ryan stood. Here's what happens next. I'm bringing in a transition team this afternoon. We'll handle the day shift. You're going to meet with HR, real HR, not someone who just files paperwork. You'll be paid for your time in that meeting, and we're going to start with one-on-ones so I can document every single thing that's been happening here. He looked around the room. If anyone here wants to walk out today, I'll understand. But if you stay, I promise you'll be part of rebuilding this place from the ground up. Not just as workers, as owners of the outcome. There wasn't applause. Just a kind of stillness that felt heavier than silence. People weren't used to being believed. 2 hours later, the regional HR lead arrived, along with a small team from the main office. They wore plain clothes, left their laptops in the car, and sat down across from the staff one by one in the dining area, which had been closed for the day. Ryan stayed nearby, checking in but not hovering. He watched as people slowly started saying what they'd kept bottled up for months. He took calls in the parking lot, arranging for a temporary GM to take over operations by morning. Someone with no ties to the current culture. Someone he trusted. By mid-afternoon, Ryan stepped outside for air. Theo followed him out, holding 2 waters from the cooler. "Didn't think I'd still be here," Theo said, handing him one. Ryan took it. "Me neither." They leaned against the side of the building. The sky was starting to clear. Theo spoke first. "I didn't tell you everything that day in the storage room." "You don't have to." "I want to," Theo said. "I used to be faster. I could do dishes for 2 stations, no problem. Then my mom got sick. I was taking care of her after shifts, barely sleeping. Darren found out, told me not to bring my home drama to work, said if I needed less hours, he'd be happy to cut me entirely." Ryan didn't respond. He just waited. Theo continued. "So I kept my head down, worked slower, got screamed at more. I stopped saying anything." Ryan took a breath. "Is she okay?" "She passed last winter." He didn't say it for sympathy. He said it like he was finally letting someone else carry part of it. Ryan placed the water bottle down on the ledge. "You want to move up? Shift lead, maybe." Theo gave a small laugh. "You serious?" "Very." "I'm not putting people in charge because they're loud. I'm putting people in charge because they care." Theo looked at him. "I wouldn't know where to start." "You already started," Ryan said. "You stayed when no one else did. That's the first step." They went back inside. HR had finished the intake meetings. Notes were being compiled. Nicole was helping close the register from the night before. Lena was guiding a new prep hire through the walk-in layout. Slowly, the place felt less like a machine and more like a living place again. Ryan made one more call before leaving for the evening. It was to a former executive chef turned operations consultant, someone who'd built kitchens where people actually wanted to work. By the end of the call, she agreed to spend 3 weeks on site, coaching the team, reworking the layout, and building a training flow that didn't treat people like cogs. That night, Ryan sat in his car in the empty lot, watching the lights turn off one by one. He didn't feel proud. He felt responsible. For every day he hadn't looked closely enough, for every person who had suffered in silence. But he also felt something else, a beginning. He pulled out his phone and opened a voice memo app. "Note to self," he said. "No more distance, no more silence. Every store, every quarter I walk the floor, no notice, no filters. If I want to lead, I have to earn it every single day." He hit stop. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. By the following Monday, the Oakdale location reopened with reduced hours and a sign on the door that read, "We're rebuilding for better service for you and for our team." It wasn't marketing copy. It was the truth. Ryan returned just after sunrise, dressed in plain jeans and a company polo, not undercover, not escorted. He walked through the kitchen with a clipboard and a pen, not to inspect but to observe. The morning crew was half the size it needed to be, so the pace was cautious, but there was no shouting. No slammed trays, just quiet coordination and clipped instructions between the few staff members who stayed. Theo was there, posted at the dish station, but he wasn't alone. A new hire stood beside him, learning the rack system. He looked up briefly and gave Ryan a nod, not forced, not performative. Just acknowledgement. Ryan stepped into the office, now cleared of clutter and stripped of any trace of the man who used to sit behind the desk. A new interim GM, Carla Ramirez, brought in from a flagship location, was reviewing the updated shift calendar. "They're hanging in," she said without looking up. "You getting what you need?" "Not yet, but they're talking. That's something." Ryan leaned against the doorframe. "What do you make of the place?" Carla closed the laptop and finally met his eyes. "It's like someone took a solid structure, flooded the basement, and painted over the mold. You want it livable again? We have to strip some things down to the studs." "I'm prepared for that." "Good. Because morale doesn't bounce back with pizza parties and slogans." Ryan didn't argue. He trusted her. That's why he brought her. In the dining area, Lena was walking a server through the new POS system, one that actually worked without freezing during mid-rush. Her voice was steady but slower than usual. She was clearly pacing herself. Ryan waited for a break, then approached. "You're training now, for now," she said. "Until we bring in someone permanent, I'm not staying in front of house. It's not where I'm strongest." "I wasn't going to ask you to, but I'm glad you're stepping in." Lena turned to the server. "Take 5, she said, then she looked back at Ryan. "You know what's wild? I stayed because I didn't want to let the others down. Now I'm starting to think I might stay because I want to see what this place could actually be." He let that sit. "It's not perfect," she added. "But it doesn't feel rigged anymore." In the kitchen, Marcus was prepping produce with a second cook, now a temp from another store, brought in to help stabilize things. He was quieter than usual, wrist wrapped from a strain he'd ignored too long. Carla had noticed it and made sure he saw a doctor on the company's dime. He'd started with half shifts since Ryan caught him by the sink. "Schedule working okay? It's lighter. Still full, but I can breathe now. You feel like staying?" Marcus looked at him. "I want to." "Ask me again in 2 weeks. Fair enough." That afternoon, HR returned for follow-up sessions, not formal reviews, just check-ins. This time they sat in the booths, not the back office. The difference wasn't lost on anyone. Ryan didn't sit in. He stayed busy reviewing invoices, walking the perimeter, speaking with vendors. He passed by Theo in the storage aisle, who was checking a dry goods delivery with a clipboard of his own. "You're off dish today. Carla's having me rotate. Said I need to see more of the backend if I'm gonna lead anything eventually." "You okay with that?" Theo shrugged. "Never thought I'd be excited about shelf inventory." Ryan smiled. "You're earning it." Theo paused. "You know what hits weirdest?" "What?" "I used to think someone like Darren was just normal, like maybe that's how work was supposed to feel. Now that it's not like that, it's like waking up from a bad dream you didn't know you were having." Ryan didn't say anything. He just reached out and gave the clipboard a tap. "Keep learning. Mistakes are fine. Just don't stop paying attention." By the end of the week, Carla had submitted a revised staffing plan. It was conservative, no overexpansion, just enough hires to support the current team without burning them out. Ryan approved it immediately. The next 2 weeks were raw but steady. Shifts were still long. The kitchen still ran lean. But no one was clocking out early to avoid overtime, no one was screamed at for slipping up, and no one cried alone in storage. Ryan returned again on a quiet Thursday evening just before close. The last table was finishing dessert. Theo was mopping near the back, earbuds in. Nicole was wiping down the bar, humming low under her breath. He walked up to Carla, who was finishing payroll. "I'm heading out," he said. "You need anything?" She shook her head. "We're good, we've got it from here." He turned, but she called after him. "You're not putting this on a poster, are you?" "What?" "The whole Undercover thing. I know how marketing loves a redemption arc." Ryan let out a breath. "No. This isn't a campaign, it's a correction." She nodded. "Good." Outside, the parking lot was quiet, the air was cool. Ryan leaned against his car, thinking back to that first night, the sobbing in the storage room, the voice through the wall, the way everything in him had gone still. He thought about how close he'd come to missing it, to writing it off as a staffing issue or a bad market. He wouldn't make that mistake again. He unlocked his door, slid into the driver's seat, and paused before turning the key. The work wasn't done. There were 13 other locations, each with its own rhythms, its own risks. But now he knew what questions to ask, what silences to look for, what truth sounded like when it finally broke through the noise. He didn't need another disguise, he just needed to keep showing up.